The Grand Colosseum of Nexus Prime floated in space like a jewel made of starlight, its crystalline dome reflecting the glow of 3 suns. Inside, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered for the centennial meeting of the Galactic Sports Federation. The atmosphere crackled with excitement as species from across the known universe prepared to showcase their athletic prowess in what many considered the pinnacle of civilized competition. High Commissioner Zixtal, a towering figure with iridescent scales and 4 arms, stood at the central podium. His voice, translated through neural networks, reached every corner of the vast chamber. And now we address the petition from Earth. His pause carried clear disdain. They wish to participate in the Crucible. Laughter erupted throughout the chamber. The Crucible, a sport that combined elements of zero-gravity combat, tactical warfare, and psychological endurance, had claimed the lives of countless athletes over its millennium-long history. Even the hardiest species approached it with caution. In the observation gallery, Sarah Chen watched the mockery with quiet intensity. At 35, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime proving others wrong. Her athletic frame, honed by years of training in experimental gravity conditions, seemed almost diminutive compared to the alien delegates around her. These humans, continued Zixtal, mandibles clicking in amusement, believe their primitive sports qualify them for our most sacred competition. Their gravity-bound games, their limited physical capabilities. He gestured to a holographic display showing footage of human sports. Look at how they stumble about on their single plane of movement. It's almost endearing. More laughter. Sarah felt her jaw tighten but maintained her composure. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Wong, Earth's leading genophysiologist, typed rapid notes into his neural interface. "They're underestimating our adaptability," he whispered. As always, Sarah stepped forward, her movement drawing immediate attention. The chamber's automated systems recognized her intent to speak and amplified her voice. "High Commissioner, respected delegates, I am Sarah Chen, captain of Earth's Crucible Initiative." Her voice carried no hint of intimidation. "We've studied the Crucible for decades. We understand its demands. Do you now?" A new voice joined the conversation. From the elite competitors section rose Kravnak, champion of the Arcturus Combine. His cybernetically enhanced body gleamed under the chamber's lights. "Understanding is not the same as surviving, human. The Crucible breaks minds as easily as bodies." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Then let us prove ourselves in the qualifying rounds. Unless," she allowed a slight smile, "unless you fear what might happen if we succeed." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Kravnak's cybernetic eyes pulsed with increasing intensity. "You dare suggest fear?" "I suggest opportunity," Sarah countered. "If humans are as inferior as you believe, surely our defeat would prove entertaining. And if we surprise you," she let the implication hang in the air. High Commissioner Zixtal raised his arms for silence. "You realize, Captain Chen, that accepting humans into the Crucible would require us to bend several qualification standards. Your species lacks basic genetic enhancements, neural interfaces, and gravitational adaptation organs." "We know," Sarah replied. "We'll compete as we are. Natural human capabilities only." The silence that followed was heavy with disbelief. Dr. Wong's neural interface recorded the various biochemical signatures of the alien delegates, most registered as either amused or confused. A few, however, showed signs of concern. Zixtal consulted with his advisory panel through their shared neural network. After what felt like an eternity, he spoke. "Very well. In the interest of sporting entertainment, we will allow Earth to field a team in the qualifying rounds. However," his voice hardened, "we will not be responsible for what happens to your athletes." "Understood," Sarah said. "We accept full responsibility for our participation and its consequences." As the chamber began to clear, Kravnak approached Sarah. His towering form cast a shadow over her, cybernetic implants humming with barely contained power. "You've signed your death warrant," human. The crucible isn't just a sport, it's evolution in action. Only the strongest survive. Sarah looked up at him, her expression unchanged. Then you should have nothing to worry about. Later, in the Earth delegation's quarters aboard their ship, Dr. Wong reviewed the day's recordings. They took the bait, he said, projecting data streams into the air. Their physiological responses confirm it. They're so convinced of their superiority that they never stop to ask why we pushed for this. Sarah stood at the viewport, watching the crystalline structure of the Colosseum rotate slowly against the backdrop of stars. Did you send the data back to the team? Already done. They're running the final simulations now. He paused, studying her reflection in the viewport. Are you sure about this, Sarah? Once we begin, there's no turning back. She turned to face him, her expression resolute. Humanity has spent centuries being dismissed as the galaxy's amusing pets. They look at our sports and see primitive pastimes. They never understood that every game we created, every competition we designed, was preparation. Her eyes held a fierce determination. We didn't develop sports for entertainment, Marcus. We developed them for survival. As if to emphasize her point, a notification chimed on their secure channel. The Earth team's final simulation results had arrived. Dr. Wong's eyes widened as he reviewed the data. These numbers, if the projections are accurate. Sarah nodded. Now you see why they had to accept our challenge. Their pride demanded it. She turned back to the viewport, her reflection overlaying the distant stars. They think the crucible will break us. They don't realize that humans have been breaking themselves and rebuilding stronger for thousands of years. That's what our sports have always been about. In the distance, the three suns of Nexus Prime began to align, their combined light making the Colosseum shine like a beacon. The qualifying rounds would begin in 3 days. Humanity's greatest test and greatest deception was about to unfold. The training facility deep beneath the lunar surface hummed with activity. In a vast chamber designed to simulate variable gravity conditions, 30 humans moved through a complex series of maneuvers that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. Their bodies twisted and turned through three-dimensional space, every movement precise, calculated, and lethal. Sarah Chen floated at the chamber's center, her training suit collecting data as she watched her team perform. The massive holographic displays surrounding them showed their competitors' previous crucible matches, brutal affairs that often ended in serious injury or death. But Sarah's attention wasn't on the violence. She was studying the patterns, the rhythms, the fatal flaws in even the most enhanced alien bodies. Neural interface simulation complete. Dr. Wong's voice came through her earpiece. They're still underestimating us. Latest odds from the Galactic betting pools show humans at 10,000 to 1 against even qualifying. Sarah allowed herself a small smile as she watched Raj Patel, their point specialist, execute a perfect zeroed combination that would have impressed even the cybernetically enhanced Arcturus team. Good, she said. Keep feeding those odds. I want every credit possible bet against us. The chamber's gravity suddenly shifted, sending the team into a new configuration. They adapted instantly, their bodies responding with practiced efficiency. Years of secret training in variable gravity had changed them in ways that even the most advanced alien scanning technology couldn't detect. Humanity had learned long ago that the best advantages were the ones your opponents didn't know you had. Captain, called out Maria Santos, their tactical specialist, as she maneuvered through a complex defensive pattern. The Proxima team just posted their qualifying strategy. They're still using the triple helix formation. Predictable, Sarah replied, using subtle movements to maintain her position as the gravity shifted again. They've won with it for so long they can't imagine it failing. Show me the Arcturus prep footage again. The holograms shifted, displaying Kravnak's team during their morning practice. Their movements were impressive. Cybernetic enhancements allowing for split-second reactions and overwhelming force. But Sarah had spent years studying predators, both on Earth and beyond. She recognized the telltale signs of overconfidence. Dr. Wong's holographic form appeared beside her, his expression concerned. The latest medical scans from the Galactic Sports Federation just came through. They're still convinced our bodies can't handle the Crucible's stress levels. Did they notice anything? No, the cellular modifications are holding. As far as their scanners can tell, we're completely unmodified humans. He paused, checking another data stream. But Sarah, their predictions aren't entirely wrong. Even with our preparations, the human body wasn't designed for this level of strain. Sarah watched as her team moved through another series of drills, their movements becoming faster, more precise with each repetition. Humanity wasn't designed for a lot of things, Marcus. That's never stopped us before. The training chamber's light suddenly shifted to red simulation mode. The team instantly broke into their assigned groups as holographic opponents materialized around them. These weren't the standard training programs. These were exact replicas of their upcoming competitors, their movements and strategies compiled from years of secret observation. Remember, Sarah called out as the simulation began, they think they know what humans are capable of. They've studied our sports, our Olympics, our public athletic records. She moved into position as the first holographic opponent charged. They have no idea that every game we ever created was preparing us for something bigger. The simulation exploded into action. To an outside observer, it would have appeared chaotic. Humans moving in seemingly impossible ways, reacting to threats from all directions in zero gravity. But there was a pattern to their movements, a strategy born from thousands of years of human combat and competition. In her office above the training chamber, Admiral Helena Chen watched her daughter lead the team through their drills. The wall of screens behind her displayed classified footage from Earth's first contact with alien life. The moment humanity realized just how physically outmatched they were by the galaxy's other species. "They're ready," said a voice behind her. Dr. James Chen, her husband, and the project's chief medical officer stood in the doorway. The latest endurance tests are off the charts. Whatever happens in the Crucible, they'll show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of. Helena didn't turn around. And the cost. What we've asked these young people to do to their bodies, to their futures, was their choice, James finished. They all knew the risks when they volunteered, just like Sarah knew when she proposed this plan 5 years ago. Below them, the simulation reached its climax. The team moved as one unit, their strategies adapting and evolving in real time. They weren't just surviving the challenges, they were mastering them. "Send the final report to the Security Council," Helena ordered, her eyes still fixed on the training chamber. "Tell them Operation Underdog is proceeding exactly as planned. The galaxy wants to see humans compete in their games." A rare smile crossed her face. "Let's show them why Earth's sports were never just about playing. They were about preparing." As the simulation ended, Sarah gathered her team. Their breathing was controlled, their movements efficient despite the intense exercise. Years of preparation had changed them in ways that went far beyond physical enhancement. They had become something new, humanity's answer to a galaxy that had dismissed them for too long. 3 days, she reminded them. In 3 days, we show the galaxy why you should never judge a species by their games. She looked at each team member, seeing in their eyes the same determination that had driven humanity to the stars. They think they're letting us into their competition. They don't realize they're stepping into ours. The qualifying rounds of the Crucible began with ceremonial grandeur. The Grand Coliseum's zero-gravity arena sprawled across a cubic kilometer of space, its transparent barriers allowing spectators to view the action from all angles. Energy fields divided the arena into shifting zones, each with its own gravitational orientation and environmental hazards. From the Earth team's preparation chamber, Sarah Chen watched the opening matches with calculated interest. The Proxima team had already eliminated 2 competitors, their triple helix formation proving as devastating as expected. The Arcturus combines cybernetically enhanced athletes, moved like liquid metal through the arena, their victories swift and brutal. Initial biometric data is coming in from the other teams, Dr. Wong reported, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. They're burning through enhancement reserves faster than usual. The arena's environmental systems are more demanding than previous years. Sarah nodded, watching as a particularly vicious match ended with a Centaurian athlete being teleported to emergency medical care. They're trying to weed out the weaker competitors early. Typical. She turned to her team, who were completing their final equipment checks. Remember your training. Let them think they have us figured out, right until they don't. The chamber's doors slid open, revealing High Commissioner Zixtal himself. Humans, he announced, mandibles twitching with barely concealed amusement. Your qualifying match begins in 10 minutes. You'll be facing the Rigel Dominion's secondary team. He paused, as if expecting gratitude for this supposedly easy draw. Thank you, Commissioner, Sarah replied formally. We look forward to the opportunity. As Zixtal left, Maria Santos approached Sarah, Rigel's secondary team. They're not even trying to hide their contempt. Good. Sarah checked her minimal equipment one final time. Unlike their competitors' tech-heavy suits, the human team wore only basic protection. The more they underestimate us, the better this works. The arena's entry portal hummed to life, and the human team moved into position. Through the energy field, they could see their opponents, the Rigel team's massive, crystalline bodies refracting light in dazzling patterns. The crowd's excitement had a notably mocking tone. Many had come simply to watch the humans fail. Remember, Sarah's voice came through the team's comm system. We're not here to win their way. We're here to win our way. The portal dissolved, and the crucible began. The Rigel team launched forward immediately, their crystalline forms allowing them to absorb and redirect the arena's energy fields. They moved in a standard attack pattern, clearly expecting the humans to either flee or be overwhelmed instantly. They were wrong. The human team split apart with practiced precision, their movements utilizing the arena's shifting gravity in ways that seemed to defy physics. Sarah led one group into a spiraling defense pattern, while Raj's unit executed a series of maneuvers that looked chaotic, but served to disrupt the Rigel team's formation. In the VIP observation pod, Kravnak leaned forward, his cybernetic eyes whirring as they analyzed the humans' movements. Impossible, he muttered. Their reaction times. The match's first critical moment came when a Rigel athlete cornered Maria Santos against an environmental hazard zone. The crowd roared, expecting an easy elimination. Instead, Maria used the hazard zone's repulsive field to launch herself through a gap in the Rigel formation, tagging two opponents with elimination markers in the process. Energy signature analysis coming in. Dr. Wong's voice crackled through Sarah's comm. They're trying to adapt their tactics, but they can't understand how we're moving without technological assistance. The arena's gravity shifted violently, a programmed attempt to challenge the competitors. The Rigel team struggled to reorient, their crystalline bodies working against them in the chaotic conditions. The human team, however, flowed with the changes, their movements almost predatory in their efficiency. Now, Sarah commanded. Her team executed their prepared strategy, using the arena's own unstable environment against their opponents. Years of training in variable gravity conditions paid off as they maneuvered the Rigel team into increasingly disadvantageous positions. One by one, the crystalline athletes were tagged for elimination, their superior strength and natural advantages rendered useless by the humans' unprecedented mobility and coordination. In the stands, the initial mocking cheers had given way to stunned silence. The elimination counter ticked steadily upward, but not in the direction anyone had expected. When the final signal sounded, the score was unequivocal. Earth had eliminated the entire Rigel team while losing only one member to a technical violation. High Commissioner Zixtal's voice, when it came through the arena's announcement system, carried a note of disbelief. The qualifying match goes to Earth. They will advance to the preliminary rounds. As the human team regrouped at their exit portal, Sarah caught sight of Kravanak in his observation pod. The cybernetic champion's expression was no longer amused. It was calculating, reassessing, perhaps even concerned. Initial reaction data coming in, Dr. Wong reported through the comm. The betting pools are in chaos. Several major houses are launching investigations, convinced we must have used illegal enhancements. Let them investigate, Sarah replied, leading her team back to their chamber. They won't find anything because we haven't broken any rules. We've simply played the game they never knew we were playing. In their chamber, the team's celebration was subdued and professional. They had passed the first test, but everyone knew the real challenges lay ahead. The preliminary rounds would pit them against progressively more dangerous opponents, and their element of surprise would be diminished. They'll study the footage, Raj noted, reviewing holographic replays of their performance. Try to decode our strategies. Let them, Sarah said, her voice carrying absolute certainty. They're still asking the wrong questions. They're looking for technology, for enhancements, for tricks. She pulled up a display showing their next opponents, a cybernetically augmented team from the Vega system. They should be asking why a species that spent its entire history playing games would be so good at turning those games into weapons. Above them, the Grand Colosseum's three suns aligned briefly, their combined light piercing through the crystal dome. In observation pods and private chambers throughout the structure, alien spectators reviewed footage of the match, trying to. The mood in the Grand Colosseum had shifted dramatically over the past 48 hours. What began as entertainment, watching supposedly primitive humans attempt the crucible, had transformed into something else entirely. The Earth team had eliminated 3 more opponents in the preliminary rounds, each victory more decisive than the last. Now, in the upper observation deck reserved for elite competitors, Kravanak studied holographic replays with obsessive intensity. His cybernetic enhancements processed every movement, every strategy, searching for weaknesses that seemed increasingly difficult to find. "They're hiding something," he growled to his tactical advisor. No unmodified species could maintain that level of performance. Below, in the arena's medical bay, Dr. Wong moved carefully between recovery pods containing injured human athletes. Despite their victories, the cost was mounting. The human body, even with their secret preparations, wasn't designed for this sustained level of stress. "Microfractures in Lisa's left fibula," he reported to Sarah, who stood watching the medical readouts. "Carlos has severe muscle tears in both shoulders. We can keep them functional, but we're running out of time," Sarah finished. She placed her hand against one of the recovery pods, watching her teammates' vital signs stabilize. "They're adapting to our strategies faster than expected." An alert flashed across the medical bay's displays. The matchups for the quarterfinals had been announced. The human team would face the Proxima squad, known for their lethal triple helix formation. But it was the second announcement that drew everyone's attention. The winner would face the Arcturus Combine in the semifinals. "They're stacking the bracket," Maria observed, her voice tight with pain as medical nanites repaired her damaged tissue. "Trying to eliminate us before the finals." Sarah's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. "Good. That means they're scared." The arena underwent reconfiguration for the quarter-final matches. New environmental hazards were added: plasma fields, gravity wells, and vacuum zones that could tear an unprotected body apart. The message was clear. The crucible was done entertaining novelties. In the Earth team's preparation chamber, Sarah addressed her battered squad. "They think they've figured us out. Think they know our limits." She brought up a holographic display of the Proxima team's previous matches. "But they're still fighting the last battle, still trying to counter what they've seen. They haven't realized that every match, every injury, every apparent limitation has been leading to this moment." The chamber's door slid open, revealing Admiral Chen. Her presence here, so close to the arena, was a clear indication of how critical the situation had become. "The Security Council is concerned," she said without preamble. The betting patterns have shifted. Several major houses are placing unprecedented wagers against us. They should be, Sarah replied. Everything we've shown them so far has been carefully calculated. Every victory, every injury, every apparent weakness. She smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. The galaxy's greatest warriors are about to learn why humans spent thousands of years playing games that simulated warfare. The alert for their match sounded, a deep, resonating tone that seemed to vibrate through bone and tissue. As the team moved toward the arena entrance, Dr. Wong caught Sarah's arm. The Proxima team has modified their environmental suits, he warned. Energy readings are off the charts. They're not planning to follow standard elimination rules. They're planning to kill us, Sarah stated flatly. Finally, they're starting to take us seriously. The arena had become a swirling maze of deadly hazards. The Proxima team waited on the opposite side, their triple helix formation already spinning up to combat speed. Their modified suits pulsed with barely contained energy. High Commissioner Zixtel's voice echoed through the chamber. This match will proceed under enhanced rule set Alpha 7. Lethal force, he paused meaningfully, is permitted. The human team moved into their starting position. Unlike previous matches, they didn't spread out into defensive formations. Instead, they clustered together in what appeared to be a vulnerable group. Remember, Sarah's voice was calm in their comms. Everything we've shown them so far has been a lie. Every strategy, every limitation, every weakness, all of it carefully crafted deception. She watched the Proxima team's formation begin its deadly spin. Now we show them what humanity's games were really preparing us for. The match began, and the Proxima team launched forward, their triple helix formation creating a vortex of lethal energy. They expected the humans to scatter, to be torn apart by the combination of their attack and the arena's hazards. Instead, the human team moved as one, their formation shifting in ways that defied conventional combat logic. Years of studying every sport humanity had ever created, from ancient wrestling to modern zero competitions, had taught them something their opponents had never understood: the true purpose of games. Now, Sarah commanded, and her team executed a maneuver that would have been impossible without their lifetime of preparation. They didn't just avoid the triple helix, they turned its own energy against it, using principles developed in sports across human history. The Proxima team's formation began to break apart, their enhanced suits overloading from the unexpected stress. In the observation deck, Kravnak's cybernetic eyes widened as he finally began to understand what they were witnessing. They're not just fighting, he whispered. They're playing. One by one, the Proxima team's members were eliminated, their supposedly lethal strategy dismantled by techniques born from thousands of years of human competitive evolution. When the final signal sounded, the human team stood undefeated, though their bodies showed the brutal cost of their victory. As they exited the arena, Sarah caught sight of Admiral Chen speaking urgently with Dr. Wong. The medical readouts told a grim story. The human team was pushing far beyond normal physical limits, but in Sarah's eyes, there was only determination. One more match, she said to her team as they headed for medical treatment. Everything we've done, every game humanity ever played, every sport we ever created, every competition we ever devised, it was all preparation for what comes next. In his private chamber, Kravnak began preparations for the semi-final match. His cybernetic enhancements hummed as combat protocols activated. The humans had proven themselves more dangerous than anyone expected, but he was confident in his superior technology and enhanced capabilities. What he didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that they weren't facing athletes or warriors. They were facing the culmination of humanity's oldest tradition, turning games into weapons of survival. The Grand Coliseum's semi-final match drew the largest audience in the facility's history. Every observation pod was filled, and quantum feeds transmitted the event to trillions across the galaxy. The human team's unprecedented success had transformed from an amusing novelty into something that threatened the established order of galactic athletics. In the preparation chamber, Dr. Wong made final adjustments to the team's basic equipment while delivering his medical assessment to Sarah. By any normal standard, you should all be physically incapable of continuing. The cumulative damage. Normal standards stopped applying the moment we began this project. Sarah interrupted, watching her team prepare. Their bodies showed the marks of their previous battles, but their eyes held an intensity that no alien species had yet recognized. Are the quantum measurements in place? Every sensor in the Colosseum is recording. Whatever happens in there, the galaxy will see it. Kravnak waited in the arena, his cybernetic form gleaming with newly upgraded enhancements. The Arcturus champion had modified his systems beyond legal limits, but the officials would look the other way. After all, this match wasn't about sport anymore. It was about maintaining the established hierarchy of species. High Commissioner Zixtel's voice resonated through the arena. This semifinal match will determine who advances to the championship round. Due to the unusual nature of recent events, the standard rules have been suspended. This will be a match of absolute combat. In her private observation pod, Admiral Chen received a secure transmission from Earth's Security Council. Operation Underdog's final phase is authorized. All monitoring stations are in position. The human team entered the arena to a mix of cheers and hostile jeers. Their minimal equipment stood in stark contrast to Kravnak's arsenal of cybernetic weapons. The arena itself had been transformed into a deadly labyrinth of environmental hazards, each section more dangerous than the last. You've impressed many with your primitive techniques, Kravnak's amplified voice carried across the space between them. But this ends now. The natural order will be restored. Sarah's response was calm, almost amused. You still don't understand what you're facing, do you? You never asked yourselves why a species would spend its entire history creating games that simulated combat, strategy, and survival. The match began without warning. Kravnak's enhanced form launched into action, his movements blindingly fast as he unleashed a barrage of attacks. The human team scattered, but not in retreat. They moved with purpose, drawing their opponent into carefully prepared positions. Their formation makes no sense, one of the alien commentators noted. They're violating every principle of competitive combat. In the control center, Dr. Wong monitored the quantum readings with growing excitement. Energy patterns are aligning perfectly. They're doing exactly what we predicted they would. The battle intensified. Kravnak's frustration grew as his supposedly superior capabilities failed to deliver the easy victory he'd expected. The humans moved in patterns that seemed to defy both physics and logic, their movements incorporating elements from thousands of years of athletic competition. Every game we ever created, Sarah's voice cut through the chaos of combat, was teaching us something. Boxing taught us how to take hits and keep fighting. Chess taught us to think dozens of moves ahead. Football taught us coordinated strategy. Wrestling taught us to use an opponent's strength against them. The human team's movements became more fluid, more coordinated. They weren't just avoiding Kravnak's attacks. They were leading him through a complex dance of their own design. The quantum readings are reaching critical levels, Dr. Wong reported to Admiral Chen. The combination of his illegal enhancements and the arena's environmental systems is creating exactly the reaction we calculated. Suddenly, Sarah's team shifted into their final formation. It was a movement that combined elements from every human sport ever created, a pattern that looked chaotic but was precisely calculated. Kravnak, driven by his enhanced combat protocols, responded exactly as their simulations had predicted. The result was spectacular. The champion's illegal cybernetic systems, pushed beyond their limits by his desperate attempts to counter the human's movements, created a cascading failure that rippled through the arena's environmental controls. The energy discharge was harmless to organic beings, but devastating to the enhanced systems that most competitive species relied on. When the energy wave cleared, Kravnak lay defeated, his cybernetic enhancements rendered useless. The human team stood victorious, their minimal equipment unaffected by the technological devastation they had orchestrated. The silence in the Colosseum was absolute. High Commissioner Zixtel's mandibles clicked in shock as he realized the full implications of what had just happened. Every sensor, every recording device, every quantum feed had captured the evidence of widespread illegal enhancements throughout competitive sports. Sarah addressed the stunned audience, her voice carrying clearly through the arena's systems. "We didn't enter the crucible to win your game. We entered it to expose it. Every match, every injury, every apparent limitation was part of a carefully orchestrated plan to force the most enhanced competitors to reveal the truth about their illegal modifications." Admiral Chen stepped forward in her observation pod, addressing the Galactic Sports Federation Council. Earth hereby submits evidence of systematic rules violations by multiple species in galactic sports competitions. We also submit our formal application for oversight authority in establishing new, truly fair competition standards. The implications rippled through the audience like a shockwave. Humanity hadn't just won a sports competition. They had orchestrated a complete reorganization of galactic athletics. Their seemingly primitive games, dismissed for so long as entertainment, had prepared them to outthink and outmaneuver species that should have been physically superior. In the medical bay afterward, as her team received treatment for their injuries, Sarah watched the chaos unfold across the galaxy. Species that had relied on technological superiority now faced a future where pure skill and strategy would determine athletic success. Was it worth it? Dr. Wong asked, reviewing the medical data that showed the long-term effects their bodies would endure from this mission. Sarah thought about every human athlete throughout history who had pushed themselves beyond normal limits, every game that had taught lessons of strategy and survival, every competition that had prepared humanity for this moment. "They thought our sports were just games," she said, watching as the Galactic Sports Federation began the process of restructuring under human oversight. "They never understood that humans turned games into our greatest weapons, not for violence, but for change." Above the Colosseum, the three suns of Nexus Prime aligned one final time, their light illuminating a new era in galactic competition. Humanity had proven that true strength wasn't found in technological enhancement or genetic superiority, but in the will to turn every challenge, every game, every defeat into a lesson in survival. And in the grand tapestry of human history, this was just another game they had learned to play and win.